So just to jump right into it, Robin told me that you are into poetry. So kind of how did you get started with that?
I've always been into writing poetry. It's been always um it's just something I do very privately for
Hmm.
myself. And though I've always like had this desire to publish my own collection of poetry, I really am taking this time in the pandemic to make that happen in a way that I haven't been able to in the past.
Okay, okay.
And so that's been really great. I've really just been focusing on my creative process. I keep looking over here because I have a pile of everything I've been working on, but this is like
Oh,
a
please
graph
do share.
of my collection. It's called After Midnight, and it features poetry that I wrote during bouts of insomnia. And the design inspiration is a digital alarm clock with red letters. And so the point is that like the whole outside, this is all going to be black. It'll be a matte black, and the all the identifying information like the title and author on the spine will be like in a shiny black.
Oh, I get it. I see it. I see it.
So really like the point is that it'll, when it's sitting down on the table, it'll look kind of like an abstract alarm clock. And then it's not till when you pick it up that it'll become like apparent that you're reading a book
Reading
kind
the
of
book.
thing.
Oh wow, that's very. I love that you see. That's why I love doing this, because even aside from the fact that you do poetry, you took and thought about all of that into the design of the book. Like a lot
Yeah,
of people will be like, "Oh yeah, I'm making a book," and then just have whatever paperback is thrown at them, and like, "Yeah, this is."
yeah, I have like the really traditional format. Well, and that's so like that was like well one reason, not only like just as as between all the intersections of my identity and like why I have such a difficult time breaking into like traditional publishing, but also for this reason of being able to have complete control over this vision. Like if I was working with a traditional publisher, I would be bound to those really rigid confines of what a book is supposed to look like.
Right.
And now, like because it's my own thing, because I'm funding the project on my own and everything, it gets to be my own thing. So this is like, so each poem like starts with the representation of the time I started writing it, because I always record the time that I start writing. And then on poems that end on the left page,
Mhm.
there's a red page on the right, and that's to mimic the experience of like being awake in a room that's only illuminated by this alarm clock.
Wow.
So like that theme really is deep. And with the traditional
Yeah.
publisher, they would have their own. They would be like, no, you have to do it this way.
Right.
And so now I just really am all about doing things how I want to do it and on my own terms. And so which is why I've chosen to self-publish.
No, I definitely love that because it creates a whole immersive experience. You know, you're reading your poetry, but then at the same time, like you said, the fact that you think to have that red page because that's the only thing that you see in the night. That's I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I need to know where I can. I need to know where I can get this. Like, I need everyone to know where we can get this. Come on.
right on. I am going to be handling sales myself, and it's actually very exciting. I've been talking to my designer.
Mhm.
We're going to set up a meeting to discuss the particular weight of paper
Mhm.
that I'm going to be using for the book. It's coming in under budget, which is really exciting because I get to have some upgrades, which is like so I'm now playing around with like doing a thicker cover, like having like a more rigid cover and just some
Right.
like maybe a nicer stock of paper.
Mhm.
I'll be handling sales myself, and so I'll reach out to you. You know, now that I have your contact information, I'm planning on doing all the sales myself, making it a very personalized process, relying on my 20 years of customer service experience.
Mhm.
Like make each book sell like not this impersonal like kind of transactional thing, but like to make each book sell this very like highly personalized and special transaction. So now that you've expressed your interest, I'll have that in my mental Rolodex, and I'll reach out to you when I'm doing that.
No, please definitely let me know. And that's really the purpose for this. You know, I really want it to be a platform where if you do have, you know, a book coming or you do have a show coming or anything in that aspect, this can be the platform where you express that. And, you know, you never know who might watch this. I don't know who might watch this. Like, I'm not some big time talk show host. So I'm just kind of like, you know what, I want to do this and give people the opportunity to share their work, because you never know who's watching. And, you know, I wanted to be able to put your information on there so they can see this and be like, because that right there, that is cool. That is really cool.
Well, I can show you something else I've been working on.
Of course.
Something that people can more easily and more immediately get in touch with me about. But I started my own bi-monthly zine. It's called Friendship Zine. These are the first 2 issues. The covers feature artwork done by friends of mine. The back cover also, as well as the centerfold also features art by my friends. And I write all the articles and come up with all the content. And that's for, you can figure out how to buy that if you.
And that's on the Instagram page, right?
That's on my Instagram. Yeah, it's at
check it out.
At Friendship Zine. And there's like a ordering form on there and that kind of thing. And that's one way people can directly support my projects right now. I am funding all my own projects and doing this all on my own. Again, for the explicit reason that I don't want anyone else's influence on my projects.
Right. I completely agree. I think that for creatives, I think that's the most important thing that we are learning. I feel like in our society overall, you know, you don't need these middlemen. You don't need these big corporations. You don't need them anymore. You really don't need them anymore. Yeah. All the information is in our hands with our phones. You know, it's easy to find like, how can I do this? And then go ahead and try to do it yourself, because when you do it yourself, you're given that creative liberty of, this is exactly what I want, and you can have it exactly how you want and how you envision. I think as creatives, when we're put in a box, that's when we're not able to really showcase like how great our work can be. Because I'm still amazed at that book. I would have been like, I'm gonna write a book of poems and boom, paperback, boom, done. That would have been my creative extent.
I'm really happy to hear that, because I've drafted I'm working on my second collection already, which I think it even has a concept that will blow your mind even more.
Oh.
So maybe in like in our next interview down the road.
Part 2.
Talk about that. But I did want to say, like, I did want to just like affirm and amplify what you said about how with technology, just simply with our phones, we have access to all models to produce everything from production to distribution and everything in between. And we can produce this on our own exactly how we see fit. And I think that's really powerful and really important. And one thing I was, that really speaks to, it's really true, because I was just watching an interview with DMX, and he was talking about like the most important backstage conversation he had. And he said it was an hour-long conversation he had with Prince, telling him that he needs to own his own masters. And so that's completely and precisely what we're talking about. And he was existing at a very different technological era than right. we're existing at now. Like, imagine
music, they didn't know no better.
Like the modes of production and distribution we have now, like how strong and how big his reach would be,
I always say that. I think of the awards that are given now and the accolades that are given now, and I'm like, for example, I love Michael Jackson, like I love him, and I think of, you think of the Thriller album and you realize like how many copies it sold, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. But then you think, and it's like, these are physical. That means people had to go out and go buy them. And it's like people who now have digital still can't even top that. So it's amazing to me. I said that type of creativity is just amazing to me. And it's like, I think the thing is that they didn't know back then, which I'm glad that a lot more artists are knowing now, is back to that, ownership, owning your own master. I'm very adamant on creatives always like having ownership of their own things. I understand that everyone needs help. There's nothing wrong with ever. I think that's a big thing too. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with receiving
Absolutely
help.
Not. Yeah.
But if you can do it yourself, I say go for it. Definitely go for it, because it's just worth it in the end when you don't have to pay somebody else. You just reap those benefits, and your creativity is not sheltered. It's not watered down. It's completely you and everything that you want it to be. So I definitely agree with you on that point.
Absolutely. one, I think that there is a big stigma around people asking their networks for help, and that there shouldn't be a stigma around that. Really, that's asking your networks for help is just a form of utilizing the resources you have at your disposal.
Right.
Your extended familial and social network being one of your biggest tools.
And then especially if someone's talented in another field that you may not have, you have to think about I kind of was like that first too, you know, a little afraid to ask for help, but then I realized I'm strong in this aspect and I need help here.
Yeah.
I know that for me, if someone came to me asking, hey, can you help me? I'm like, yeah, like I'm excited because it's what I like to do. So once I realized that, it's like, I can't do this, but I know my friend such and such loves to do this. So let me reach out and see, because 9 times out of 10, people are more than willing to try to help. Like if you keep your circle right.
That message of like of featuring collaborations with friends is one of my biggest missions, and that precisely speaks to what you were just talking about.
Yeah, collaboration is the biggest thing. Yeah.
Everything, and with your friends, that by using the things you're strong at and powerful at, like by combining those things, then you become more powerful. It doesn't weaken or detract attention from either of your projects. Just quite the opposite, you know.
Yeah, and I think the problem has become that so many people think that we live in a world that it has to be here, like climbing dog eat dog, and it's just like, no, there's beauty in collaboration. You know, our favorite songs are probably by 2 of our favorite artists who everyone loves when their 2 favorite artists come together, because it's just like, oh my gosh, like it's great. Like people come together and it's great. So I definitely love collaborating, and even this is collaboration. You know, I'm not a poet, so I can't sit and talk about poetry. Let me reach out to someone who can.
Yeah.
So what kind of inspires you, you know, when you're writing, besides, I know you said like insomnia, but like what are some things that you know you get inspiration from?
Insomnia, really, this first collection, like I wrote at night. I really don't do any writing at night anymore. I've really moved all my writing to daytime, like especially this, you know, while I work in food and beverage service, so my industry has been shut down or completely changed in the past year. My writing is very, very heavily influenced by my identity as being adopted, as being queer, and as being a brown man in Baltimore City, and so my work is really just tackling all of that. It becomes a place for me to process these things, and it also becomes like a really safe space for me to exist when all these things are kind of getting really intense in the outside world around me.
That's good though, that you can pull from your own, well, most of us pull from our experiences, but the fact that, you know, you tie it to, you know, living in Baltimore and having all of these different self-demographics, so to say, you know, how does that make you who you are, and how can you share that with people? I think that's really awesome. What about Baltimore? Like, have you found any inspiration in Baltimore? Because I know me moving here and you being born and raised here definitely is like obviously 2 different ball games. So do you feel like the creativity in Baltimore has
and so it's like a hard, like being adopted, it's like a hard thing because I wasn't technically born here. I was born in India, but I came to Baltimore when I was a month old. And so I've been here my entire life. And so even though I only really spent 1 month not here, that very big nuance of not being born and raised here, of not being able to assert accurately that I was born and raised in Baltimore, even though I very strongly identify with this city. It's the only city with which I'm able to identify because I was only a month old when I came here and I learned. And so I don't know, like Baltimore, I mean, I'm sure you said you've been here since 2016, so 5 years in Baltimore. Like Baltimore is a city that you love and it's a city that you hate. And you have both emotions, and they are existing simultaneously. And there's really, it's a really great city that can be infuriating, you know?
It's so odd. It really is. It's like, this is the first place I lived besides New York that I've been here for years. I went to Atlanta my freshman year of college, and I loved Atlanta. It was great. But I wanted that college experience. So then I came to Towson, and living in this area and just honestly the DMV overall, it's it's an odd place because it's so creative. Like it really is. Like there's a lot of talented people here. But then at the same time, like Baltimore especially, Baltimore just has something that's just like driving, for instance, pisses me off. Like I went driving the other day and I'm just like, why are the roads like this? Like why? And then it just gets even bigger into just how the city's kind of set up and then the things that are happening here. And it's I get what you mean by infuriating. It's just like, but then it's like you see
all. And then when you watch like how gentrification, how the city's gentrifying, and how resources are flowing, like were you driving up? Like I mean, it depends on where you were driving. But were you driving up Greenmount Avenue, right around where it turns into York Road? Because
York Road, exactly. That's exactly where I was at today.
Yeah, and that's what I was on there. I was driving because I don't drive, but my friend drives, and I was in the car with my friend, and I was like, I thought of a whole new route. I was like, next time we're going to this place, like I have a different route for us. It's gonna
I was in the car, I'm on Waze. I'm like, please give me a different route. Like it's terrible.
Oh, so next time, like just cut over, like at 33rd, just cut over to Old York Road, and then just go out Old York Road, which is like one block.
Like a right and then a left, and you just keep going straight.
Yeah, exactly. And go out Old York, and then it'll put you back onto York Road right above where all that's done. So I think that will be the move, just so you know.
I had to look through Ways. I was just like, this is ridiculous. Because they're doing like the construction. So there's one lane and then this car's like behind me riding my tail. And I'm like, sir, I'm not going any faster because my entire car will fall apart. We're not doing
And the potholes are like, there's a foot, they're like 6 inches.
They're not even potholes. They're like holes of the earth. Like they're ridiculous.
Sorry, I guarantee you in 2 years when the demographics of that neighborhood flip, that it's gonna, I mean, it's already flipped, that it'll look like it'll be a very different landscape driving up Greenmount.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad because it's happening in a lot of places. Like even I talk about Harlem in New York.
Yeah.
I know, like I grew up in Long Island, but like my family's there. It has a Starbucks.
And a Whole Foods.
A Whole Foods is over.
Whole Foods took over like the family grocery that had been there for like decades, like that. And like they called it, what did they call it? Like NoHa or something, like North Harlem. They called it. They're trying to I don't know.
Gosh, it's just sad.
It makes me really angry to watch cities gentrify because literally it just like these. One beautiful thing about Baltimore, and the reason it's gentrifying is because of the culture here, and that's created by Black people, and white people see that and want to be a part of that, and then they, in this really poor model of colonization, end up just
moving everybody out of where they're
completely decimating the culture they're trying to. I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, what?
Ultimately, you have culture in these different places and it creates so much. And when you gentrify it, what is left? Like a Whole Foods? Like there's nothing there, and it's you're pushing these people out, and I don't know. I don't get it. And the only thing that I can think of is kind of what we say all the time is like ownership, owning your own places and not, because I know not to get all into like, buying and selling and all that, but really owning things in your neighborhoods and sticking true to having that and passing it on into your family, into your friends and your neighborhood, not selling to these big corporations because you're going to get a lot of money for it. No, like I hate to see even the Bronx in New York, going there and I'm seeing these buildings being built and they have granite countertops and I'm not saying that they can't be upgrades to a city. That's different. I would love to see the city upgraded, but
you can't invest in a city. You can invest
in investing in it, but when you start to raise rent to $2,000, when you know that this other person don't pay that,
that's intentional.
Yeah, so
yeah, I have a lot to say about this, and I get really heated when I talk about this. But I will say that I appreciate that this is a part of our conversation, and I will say that I don't think people should shy away from encouraging us, particularly artists of color, and particularly queer artists of color, to own their own properties in neighborhoods, because we're the ones creating the cultural value.
Literally.
And so we should be benefiting from the finances of that cultural value creation. Like it's you know, I could go deeper into this, but I will say I think we redirect because I could really.
We will. I feel you 100%.
I have one thing I used to avoid writing about it. Like one thing I've been like staring with a lot of anxiety at my neighborhood, at my city, and watching it gentrify. Like it causes me a lot of anxiety because also as a queer person of color, ownership has never been encouraged for me. It's been encouraged for my white siblings. It's been encouraged for my siblings as they get married in very heteronormative structures. But it's never been, although I've always been fascinated by Baltimore and Baltimore architecture, and always been very heavily invested in creating a cultural scene in Baltimore my entire life because it's important to me. I've never been encouraged to invest in this city until relatively recently, as it's starting to attract white interest, and so I've started to write more directly about these things and more creatively. I haven't really. It's mostly been in the form of journaling. I haven't journaling, and you know, I did start one project which is called like anti-gentrification haiku, which is like as I'm walking around and getting frustrated by these things, I'll compose. Done anything with it yet. I'm just starting to explore that more and start to write more about gentrification. I think it's something important to talk about.
Yeah, no, definitely. So to kind of change gears, because I very much I literally could talk about these, like when it comes to like race and all of that, I could talk for days, like days and days and days, because
especially with your skill set of the 3 jobs you have, like you're right at the in the middle of everything you're doing, it seems, you know.
So I'm touching all bases. So I've just definitely been exposed to, you know, different things, and especially being in a different city, just seeing how, you know, people react differently to the things going on in their community. So to kind of change gears.
Totally.
What about like traveling? Do you enjoy traveling?
Oh, I miss traveling so much.
Where are some places that you've been?
You know, I had to cancel 2 trips to New Orleans because of this pandemic. It was.
I want to go to New Orleans so bad.
Oh my God, that's like the only place I want to be. Actually,
have you ever been or no?
Yeah, I've been twice, and it's amazing. The culture, the music, the food, like the people, like everything. There's just everything to draw you in about there, and it's not a singular experience. Like both times I went, were vastly different experiences. I didn't even like try to chase the experience I had the first time, the second time, and it was vastly different, but it was like incredible. And I just always leave like not wanting to leave and wanting to go back.
I definitely need to get out there because my birthday falls around Mardi Gras, so I'm just like I have to. So
you like to like dance and party and stuff like that? Is that like what is that?
Of course, don't tell Robbie.
Okay.
No, but I love having fun. I'm a very fun person. Like I enjoy always doing things all the time. So I'm just like, I'm a party girl. I feel like New Orleans is definitely the place that I need. To say I've never been sounds insane. Like I have.
Oh my God, yeah. No, you're just saving it. You're saving it for some important celebration. Like it's fine. Like New Orleans will be there. Like
it'll be there. It's gonna hit even harder because I haven't been able to go there and it's been COVID. So I know now, like afterwards, I'm going full out.
We do have like, I was only able to get like a refund for 1 round of plane tickets. The other one is just a voucher. So I have like open-ended ticket, you know, as soon as it's safe to travel again, that's where I'll be.
Look, I got the 2nd vaccine today. So, so I want to know like I know you said explain kind of what inspires you. Who inspires you, you know, when you're doing your work or just in general?
I'm so inspired by other poets, and I've just been looking to the work of our elder Black poets who have been doing this work for us. I don't have to look far. Some of my favorite writers and poets are James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni, and spreading outward from there, Sonia Sanchez and Roxane Gay, and you can just like keep going. There's so much great poetry that's nationally known. There's so much great small poetry, like some small poets I really love. It's harder to like list names of poets off the top of my head, but um, uh, it's um, I definitely have been. I definitely I reference this work. I give reverence to this work and these words that that have been being said. Like what I'm saying, one thing that I do realize about the words that are being said is that they're nothing new. That marginalized folks have been fighting for a place and a voice and real estate and resources forever.
Yeah.
And so it's at times it's disheartening that it's the same at times, but at the same time I find a lot of inspiration in knowing that I'm not the only one grappling with these things in writing and internally and on such a deep level, and as thoughtfully as these poets, particularly like Nikki Giovanni. And she, I mean, just in terms of the breadth, thinking of the breadth of her career, the fact that she's still creating and still publishing volumes of poetry today. And another poet who I've really recently just re-immersed myself in has been the work of Lucille Clifton. I've been researching her, and she, though she didn't write all of her poetry in Baltimore, it wasn't until she moved to Baltimore that she started writing poetry. Like she moved from New York to Baltimore, and then like 3 years later, she wrote her first collection, I think in DC or at Columbia. It was somewhere else, but and so and her mansion in, I think it's on the west side. It might be over west. I can't remember if it's over west or over east, honestly, but they're converting her mansion, I think it's her west side mansion, into a writing center, particularly for marginalized writers. It was supposed to open this spring. Obviously, that's all been changed
and everything, yeah,
of COVID-19, but definitely a project I think to have that other people, other creative folks should have their eye on is not only honoring Lucille Clifton's work, historic work, but also keeping an eye on what's happening at her former residence in Baltimore currently.
Right. I think that's really important, and it ties to what we said in terms of like creatives pulling from their experiences. You know, you noted that these poets are writing about things that they experienced in their time, and you know, it's kind of like sad that we kind of do the same thing, but it goes back to what we said of we talk about our experiences and what we're going through in our environment, and it should be, and that's why I appreciate it, because it's very, it's not a cautionary thing, but it tells you a lot. You know what I mean? Like you have this poet who is from 1930s talking about the same exact thing that someone in 2021 is talking about.
Yeah, that these words are still relevant.
Very relevant. That goes to show you that something is not, there's something not right here, like at all.
I had like this whole idea planned, and then these hate crimes, and these really heinous hate crimes that have been getting a lot of public attention have started happening. Asian Americans have been under attack for our entire history in this country, just like all marginalized and minority groups in this country. We've been under attack our entire history. There is also colorism to talk about, I had this very poetry oriented event for NAP's Second Thursday planned out, all mapped out in my head. It was all, I had a whole zine making activity. It was very poetry oriented, very uplifting, supposed to be very positive. And then these really heinous events happened, and I've reimagined it. So we're still going to be doing these activities that really bring me a lot of joy, that I really do want to share. But we're going to be doing it. It's going to be like this like collective grief, but focusing on collective joy. And so we're going to do like an opening activity that's aimed at sending a message to our inner child, and then we're going to do like a collective grieving and a public like grief and joy activity that's gonna give folks space to air their grievances, but the focus is going to be on what brings us joy in this thing. And I don't necessarily think that that's always appropriate, focusing on joy, especially in this heinous time, but particularly because we are an organization that caters to and provides support for the Asian American community. I think that it's a really significant time for us to focus on our joy, despite these really awful grievances, these awful things that are happening around us, right, which always have been happening.
Yeah, and I think it's important, kind of what you said, just focusing on that joy as well. You know, not making it completely all about it, because we obviously had these very American issues that happened. I saw a tweet, and it was so sad because it was so true. It was like, America's getting back to normal when it has 2 mass shootings in the same week. And I said, that is so bad, because it's true. And it's like, all of our problems in this country are so easy to solve, and there's a group of people who just don't want to solve it because it does not directly affect them. And I think that is just disgusting. And I knew that just with certain instances and certain events, when they happen and there's no repercussions for certain people, and there's no repercussions for certain groups of politicians and all these type of whoever incites these things, when there's no repercussions, how do you expect it to stop? And especially if it's not affecting you. And it's mind-blowing to me that even still, there's events that don't necessarily target my group as a Black woman, for instance. There's not an event that doesn't target me as a human being. Seeing that, it's like, someone do something. Like, do something. And then especially people who are put in position and put in power to do something, you don't do anything. It's like what are we gonna do? So it's like, we have that grief and that burden, but then at the same time, I think it's very important for us, especially as marginalized group, to not let that be who we are, to keep us in that area of grief and sadness, and to come together and recognize that together we have to, they're not going to do it for us. They're really not. So it's important for us to come together and recognize the things that we have to do together in order to try to combat the things that are going on in this country. It's hard work. It's hard work because we're talking about a system that wasn't designed for any of us and has been ingrained in so many people. It's like, we have to find the best way to try to fight it. And, I think that, like I said, you bringing that point of recognizing the things that are going on and, sharing that grief, but then also not letting it completely boggle you down. You have to think about, okay, like, what can we do? How can we come together, and how can we fix this? Thinking of ways to come together is just really important. And I think that aspect is what kind of draws people to want to participate and to want to help. Because it's like, we have this really sad event and we all share these experiences, but how can we each come together and share our positive experiences to try to translate some type of better outcome than what the hell is going on in this country, because it just keeps getting worse and worse. And I part of me, I'm ready to leave, but
and man, you just hit on so many really important topics. But one thing is that this was not designed for us. This country was not designed for us. This country was designed either to expel us at our expulsion. By that I mean death, or extort as much possible of our physical labor before then expelling us.
Yeah.
And that's the plan. And it's the thing that's even crazier to me is it's not necessarily this segment of the population that seems unaffected, that's inactive. It's the even smaller part of that segment, that population that's financially vested in these systems, that's benefiting financially from these systems.
Yep.
That's vested enough, that's fooled this larger part of the population into thinking this is the way it is, because they, by tying some sort of financial security or some
type of brain
imaginary sense of security to this perceived sense of privilege, which is all just a fallacy. It's all a lie.
Yeah.
And so I completely agree about creating our own structures, creating our own structures, creating our own economies. And I will say, to tie it back to this conversation, that the way that begins is through conversations such as these.
Yep.
That conversations such as these, which make these processes seem so clear and so obvious and so easy to tackle. They're not, they're hard. I was just speaking to the eloquence of like this conversation. It might seem easy, it might seem so obvious, these things that are talking about, but that's not the case. These things are very difficult to break down internally and externally, that our eloquence in talking about them is almost a shame, because we shouldn't have to be so well versed in talking about
about things that we didn't make up, things that we were forced to have to deal with. And it's just like, we have to figure it out. And it's like, oh, this is what you created. So you did this so that this could happen. So now we have to figure out how to unravel all of that. Meanwhile, you're still making things, you're still doing things consistently. And it's really hard, but I have hope in my spirit. I have hope in my soul that one day, one of these days, I just don't think, I hope that I can, but I don't know if I'm gonna be alive to see it. But I know that there's gotta be like, there's no way we can possibly keep going on like this. I think we're at a point now, especially with everything that's happened within the past year. I think a lot of people now are more educated and definitely more aware about the things that are going on. And I think that's the point where things will start to change, because before it had to do a lot with, you're not exposed to it, so you don't know what's going on. We have social media to thank for that. And then now the education of it, you have all these people having conversation and talking to one another, and let me explain A, B, and C to you and break it down to you so you can understand. So when they learn, pass it on to that person. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to solving this problem of whatever the hell's going on. Like, yeah. I can't even put one word on it because it's everything wrong. It's just everything.
But it's the whole damn system. It's the whole damn system, and we do need to restructure from the ground up. On some days to me that feels like we need to burn it all down and restructure from the ground up, literally, physically. That's on my bad days. On my good days, I realize that from the outside, society will look the same. Your house will look the same. Your school will look the same.
Yeah.
All is going to look the same, but the structures will be different. Right. On my better days, I'm able to realize that it's not going to be such a jarring physical difference, except that will stop.
We have to infiltrate. That's how I feel. Infiltrate and take over, and then own our own stuff. Don't let them try to steal our stuff no more. Be smart. Yeah. Be smart. We
need what we need is a media. We need like a media outlet, like a TV. TV like some kind of like public radio has failed us, public television has failed us.
I think media overall has failed us, we have CNN and Fox and ABC News, and people just repeat what they want to say. And it's just like, I think that's why, me launching this is important. As a Black woman, I have this platform where I'm not gonna shy, or that's why I said this is not a professional interview. Like, I'm gonna cuss, I'm gonna say what I want, because it's my platform. It's for the people who share like my background and share the same struggles that I do, or similar struggles that I do. And I'm not going to sugarcoat and try to appeal to one group of people. Like, I just want to focus on just carrying this. And it's like, no, we're going to tell you the truth of what's going on, because this is the reason why I did it. I have my own. This is my own. There's no, Fox is not going to come in and tell me that I need to say this and read this transcript here. I'm not doing that. I'm just from here. So I think that's the beauty.
That was to Fox News, not you.
Thank you so much for doing this, and I appreciate it. We will be in touch again for sure.
Thanks, Tamia. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.